Rockstar officially dropped the ball. I don't really know any other way to put it. This is Grand Theft Auto 6, not just another sequel, arguably one of the biggest entertainment releases ever. This pre-order rollout should have been incredible. Gameplay, a third trailer, a deep dive into the mechanics, something that made 14 years of waiting feel worth it. Instead, we got a digital copy and what Rockstar calls a physical edition, which is basically a plastic case with a download code inside. No disc, just a digital game pretending to be physical. It's kind of like buying a collector's edition Blu-ray, opening the case and finding a note that says the movie's online. But I get why people are upset. Honestly, I'm upset too. But then something weird happened. The more I read about this story, the less interested I became in the missing disc. I became interested in us, or more specifically, the way we were talking about Rockstar. I started reading through threads, Reddit, articles, and everybody sounded like they just gotten dumped. Rockstar betrayed us. They don't care anymore. They've become greedy. And I kept stopping at that word, greedy. Because what exactly does that mean? Did Rockstar suddenly wake up one morning and decide, you know what? Let's disappoint millions of people? Probably not. So I started asking a different question. Why would they think this rollout was a good idea? I found an article from PC Gamer by Molly Taylor. Before I go any further, I want to be clear about something. I actually think gamers have every right to be frustrated. This isn't just about a missing disc or nostalgia. For many people, physical media represents ownership. You buy the game, you own that copy. You can lend it to a friend, sell it later, put it on a shelf, or come back to it 20 years from now. Digital purchases don't always work that way. In most cases, you're buying a license to access the game, not ownership in a traditional sense. That's a subtle legal distinction, but it's a meaningful one. So I don't think gamers are wrong per se. I just think they're explaining the wrong cause. Now, back to the PC Gamer article. One explanation I came across actually made sense though. If there aren't millions of physical discs sitting in warehouses, there are fewer chances of retailers accidentally breaking the street date. Fewer leaks, fewer spoilers. Considering GTA 6 is probably the biggest game launch in history, that's not a crazy explanation. But I still felt like something was missing. Everybody kept talking about Rockstar's intentions, almost nobody was talking about Rockstar's incentives. Those are two completely different conversations. So I stopped reading gaming forums. I stopped reading social media, and I started reading something I guarantee almost nobody complaining online has read. Take-Two's investor presentation. Yeah, I need something better to do with my time. But honestly, that's when everything clicked for me. Because the language changes immediately. When Rockstar talks to us about gaming, it's freedom, immersion, storytelling, the biggest game ever. When Take-Two talks to investors about gaming, it's net bookings, operating cash flow, EBI TDA, growth, $8 billion in projected bookings, over $1 billion in projected operating cash flow. And after reading all that, I just sat there thinking, these people aren't even having anywhere near the same conversation we have. Based on the online reaction, you'd think there'd be at least one slide weighing the trade-off between higher profits and consumer backlash. Maybe one asking whether longtime fans would be disappointed by the disc's removal. Now, I'm not foolish enough to think that those requests would actually be in their earning profits sheet, but I assumed that based off of how the online reaction was, that's what they would assume was in there. That there's a page specifically for monitoring the consumer's emotions. And it just is not. Instead, it's page after page of net bookings, operating cash flow, EBI, TDA, margins, and growth, just to reiterate. That, however, doesn't mean they're evil. It means they're speaking the language of a publicly traded corporation. Now, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, and maybe I'm just spinning my tires, but I think it's important to understand why corporations make the decisions they make. If every conversation ends with, they're greedy, then we never actually understand the system that produces the behavior. This is where I would put that message sign, or meme, whatever. Here's something I think we need to stop doing. We talk about corporations like they're people. Rockstar betrayed us, Nintendo loves its fans, EA hates gamers. Think about how strange that sounds. We don't say the incentive structure produced this outcome. We say they stabbed us in the back. Somewhere along the way, we started treating companies like their relationships. While I was researching this video, I stumbled across a term I hadn't thought about since college, and I think it fits perfectly here. Eleemosynary corporation. It's basically a corporation whose primary purpose isn't maximizing profit. Think hospitals, schools, certain nonprofits, organizations that exist primarily to provide a service. And that's when something clicked. A lot of things clicked in this video. Rockstar isn't failing to be something it claims to be. We're expecting it to be something it never was. The game industry isn't charity, it's business. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying just accept it. I'm saying expecting a company, even one you've loved for 20 years, to consistently put your interests ahead of profit is setting yourself up for disappointment. And here's where I sympathize with the consumer, because Rockstar is squeezing you guys. Somebody has to pay for growth. Investors expect bigger returns than last year. Executives are rewarded for delivering those returns quarter after quarter, year after year. Eventually that pressure has to land somewhere. Guess where it lands? You. Maybe that's removing physical disc. Maybe it's a collector's edition with a download code. Maybe next time it'll be something else. Who knows? The point isn't the disc. The disc is just where the pressure showed up this time. Then I went back to those investor slides, and something else jumped out at me. The bigger the financial stakes become, the more risk-averse institutions become. Think about it. If your company is telling investors it's expecting $8 billion from one game, are you going to introduce more uncertainty or less? Would you want millions of physical discs floating around warehouses weeks before launch? Would you risk retailers breaking street date? Would you risk leaks? Probably not. Suddenly, code in the box doesn't look like a random decision anymore. It looks like risk management. Now, that doesn't mean I like it. I don't. It doesn't mean I think it's good for consumers. I don't. But understanding why something happens isn't the same thing as defending it. And I think we've gotten really bad at separating those two ideas. What fascinates me is in Rockstar. It's us. Why do we expect emotional loyalty from institutions whose legal obligation is to generate returns for shareholders? Why does every corporate decision become a morality play? Why do we keep looking for villains instead of incentives? I honestly don't know, but I think it's worth asking. And here's the part Rockstar is probably counting on. The gameplay trailer drops, the internet loses its mind, the game looks incredible, people complain about the missing disc right before pre-ordering it anyway. Maybe not everybody, maybe not immediately, but enough people. Enough for the strategy to work. Because if GTA 6 still becomes one of the best-selling games ever made, what lesson does the company actually learn? Not never do that again. Probably the opposite. So, did Rockstar drop the ball? As a gamer? Absolutely. As someone who still loves physical media? Without question. But as an institution operating inside a publicly traded corporation that's forecasting over $8 billion in bookings, I'm not convinced this was ever a mistake. Maybe Rockstar didn't fail. Maybe they did exactly what its institutions built around shareholder value are designed to do. And maybe that's why these conversations never seem to change anything. Because every time something like this happens, we argue with the corporation's personality instead of asking what keeps rewarding its behavior. The missing disc isn't really the story, it's just a symptom. The real story isn't that Rockstar became greedy overnight, it's that institutions keep responding to incentives while we keep responding to outcomes. And until those incentives change, don't be surprised when the next company makes the exact same decision.